spells lollipop.
Why don't you just go hand out parking tickets and leave me alone? Stick to something you know about.
Listen, my daughter was about your age. Then she met a guy like you. Now she's dead.
You should believe in ghosts, P-Brain.
He's a closet.
Don't hurt me, please. Don't keep me waiting for those onions, Herman.
This is all the whiskey you possess?
Everyone out of the way of the bulldozer!
Hello and welcome to Hello, This is the Doomed Show. I am Richard. Folks, it's a solo episode. I know, and I'm sorry. No, it's been a long time, very long time since I've done a solo episode. I have missed doing these, mainly because they're easy. And that's why I'm here, because I'm easy. I'm here to record my body. My body. My body. What is this episode about? I want to talk about nostalgia stuff. I want to talk about the films that I watched the most as a kid. So I'm going to start in 1982, the first memory that I can think of a couple films I watched over and over and over again. And I'm going to go all the way up until a little bit after senior year of high school. So a good 15 years of my life. And we'll see if it's interesting. It's probably going to be really boring and overly specific to me because I'm a dullard. So this episode partly inspired by the Retro Movie Love podcast. If you haven't heard that, please go check that out. Good old Cinema Do Meep does year by year. He talks about films he's seen, and he really does this great stuff. It's like one of those shows where you need to have paper and pencil, or as the kids are using these days because of technology, paper and a pen, because you're going to want to write down all these frickin' movies and check them out. He's really, really good about that stuff. So, and I wanted to do a bastardized version of that. I wanted to rip him off and do it in a way that he could not sue me for. Wow. But before I get to that, let's talk about where is a regular episode. So, folks, this is not edited. So all these long, boring pauses and creepy mouth sounds and me talking like crap, is just how I speak normally, and I'm not editing this. So I am burnt out on editing. I was hanging out with my pal Duncan of the podcast Under the Stairs, and I was like, hey, socially distanced friend in Scotland, what is up with how long editing is with a show? And pardon my Scottish accent, Duncan said, hey man, how long do you edit them there podcasts you got there? And I said, well, y'all, see, this is a terrible bit. So, I told him I do about 8 to 10 hours per episode, and, he didn't laugh, which is nice. But he was like, yo, dog, that's terrible. He does not spend that much time on editing. And so we kind of talked about it for a while. And I found out that the reason I'm so sick of editing the podcast is because I'm doing it wrong. And I'm putting too much work into it. Obviously, I don't have OCD, but I have some kind of an obsessive issue with learning to let go of the podcast. It's very hard for me to put out an episode if it's not quote-unquote perfect. My co-hosts, Brad, Jeffrey, and Simon, I have lots of great episodes with them recorded, but something's got to change. I cannot spend 8 to 10 hours editing the show. That's stupid. The point is, if there ever was a point, the episodes that are going to come out this month and next month, there's not going to be a Christmas episode next month, so Christmas is canceled. Hashtag relevant topics. Haha. Because I am so tired of this stuff, and it's all my fault. I still love recording with my buds. I love having guest people on. I love being a guest on other people's shows, but I just need a long break from editing. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So this is a solo episode. Next month, another solo episode. And then in January, things are going to get back to normal around here. But let's quickly talk about a subject very dear to me, the year 1976. Okay. As y'all who listen to this show know, I'm old as shit. And that was the year I was born. And I love movies from that year. I love 1976. And that's what I want to talk about in the solo episode I'm doing in December. So folks, here's your mission. Write in to the show, doomedmoviethon@gmail.com. Write in and tell me your top 3 favorite movies from your birth year. Whatever year you were born, look it up if you don't know, and watch some films from that year and find some favorites. So, doomedmoviethon@gmail.com. Write in to me. And I'll read them in that episode. And, bonus, if you send me your mailing address, I will send you stickers. I will send you a Doomed Moviethon sticker. I'll send you a Hello, This is the Doom Show sticker. I will send you a Gyrojet sticker of this episode. Hold on to your butts. Okay, so I got a list of movies from 1982 to 1987. 1997. I did not graduate high school that early. In fact, I barely graduated high school because I hated school and I really hated work. Isn't that ironic now that I'm a podcaster? No, it's not ironic. So my parents decided to try this newfangled thing called cable TV. And I swear we only had it for like one weekend in 1982. And cable back in the early days apparently was like weird. I don't even know if it was HBO. I don't even know what the channel was. But for this trial weekend of cable, my sister, Lorraine, and I watched 2 films. Because these films were on all day. That noise is my cat sneaking up on me. I see you. I see you. Anyway, we watched 2 movies all weekend. We watched Popeye, the 1980 film directed by Robert Altman, or Robert Alt, man. And I've never watched Popeye since. This innumerable, uncountable number of times we watched Popeye. I remember liking it because I was a kid, and I did watch the Popeye cartoons because if it was on TV in the 80s, I was watching it. Whatever it was, I was plopped down in front of the TV. Didn't have a lot of friends, which is why I'm now a podcaster. So, but the movie that it was paired with all weekend, Clash of the Titans, 1981, directed by Desmond Davis. Now, surprisingly, I didn't become this like monster kid overnight because that film is loaded with, like the Harryhausen goodness. It's just a beautiful film. I have the Blu-ray now because it was really funny. After watching it over and over and over again, and then every time it came on TV, like on TBS or whatever channels would show it, I hadn't revisited Clash of the Titans for like 20 years. So a couple years ago, I finally just bought the Blu-ray of that and the Blu-ray of Flash Gordon, the 80s movie, the glorious frickin' movie, which I didn't watch enough as a kid, but I did really enjoy as a child. I love that Queen song, the Flash song that had the lyrics, had the movie quotes in the song. I just listened to that song obsessively. I thought it was so cool. Just a man with a man's courage, or whatever the hell. And I'm losing it. Oh yeah, so revisiting Clash of the Titans and revisiting freaking Flash Gordon was like mind-blowing. I now really get where the Hail Ming podcast was coming from. Like, I knew that Slappy Gordon, I knew Slappy Gordon was good, but man, wow. Anyway, but Clash of the Titans, the scene that really stuck in my brain is when good old Perseus and his buddies are sleeping, and I keep wanting to say Kolobos, but I think it's, I don't know, Hollister, Abercrombie and Fitch. This is why I should edit the show. His name is Little Petunia, the evil guy, the devil guy with the tail. He shows up, and using the blood from the severed head of Medusa, he makes these giant scorpions or whatever to attack their camp while they're sleeping. That whole sequence was just terrifying and wonderful, and just, and the whole movie is just so full of monsters and weirdness. Totally beyond the understanding of a 6-year-old kid, but just, a lot of stuff happens to keep a kid interested, so it all worked out. Love that movie. So, I should probably say real quick, the order of this list is not in release date. Some of it's in release date because of how I came to beholdening these frickin' movies. So a lot of this stuff's going to jump back and forth in time. The reason I'm mentioning that is because the next film, 1975, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, directed by Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones. Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones, is that right? Terry and Terry directed that movie? Are all British people named Terry? Folks, if I mess that up, don't tell me. So, the funniest thing about Monty Python and the Holy Grail is that I had the tape because it was one of those things that would show up on PBS. Because PBS, after Doctor Who or before Doctor Who, I can't quite remember, would show episodes of Monty Python, and they would show Monty Python and the Holy Grail a lot. And since my dad my dad and I would just cackle like madmen, like the TV show Mad Men, because we were smoking cigarettes. We would lose our minds to this movie. And so my mom was like, okay, and she got us the tape. And I proceeded to watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail a billion times, a trillion times. I don't think I'm as good as I used to be, but it's one of those movies that I can watch and quote almost every single line of dialogue, no matter how, even if it's a build up to a joke, even if, if it's like the setup for a punchline. I know the setup too. It was so bad. A little water here. Great movie. I mean, it really, really is a lot of where my sense of humor comes from. That plus Saturday Night Live, plus SCTV, of course. I hope I talk about SCTV enough. And strangely enough, Rowan Martin's Laughing. That Nick at Night, that early Nick at Night comedy block, all that stuff, plus Monty Python, made me a loser. So, speaking of comedies, a film that really changed my life, really got me into blues music. No, I'm just kidding. I actually really dislike blues music. The Blues Brothers, 1980, directed by John Landis. So, and I think that's the thing about watching a movie over and over again. Like, now I don't have the capacity. If I watch a movie now as an adult, well, as a fake adult, I don't want to see that movie again for like 3 or 4 months, sometimes a year. Like, I'm going to watch this movie again, whatever it is, but I just get like weird if I'm watching it too often. Now, there are exceptions, which would be a whole nother episode. The movies I watch over and over again now as an adult is wild, and my wife can tell you, like, I don't understand it either, although a lot of it is her fault, because she introduced me to a lot of the stuff that I love to rewatch over and over again now. And I'm not talking horror, I'm talking like weird shit, but whatever. That's a teaser for another episode someday. Maybe Liette and I will be on this one talking about the stuff that we watch over and over again. But you get into this zone when you watch a movie too many times. You start to get weirdly hypnotized by this thing that you know really well. And your brain, my brain, I don't know if I'm speaking for you. I'm sorry, listener at home. But my brain will like notice little details about the film I never noticed before, and it's kind of rewarding me for watching it again. It gets me hyped up for yet another viewing sometime in the future. It's ridiculous. And that's what I do with the Blues Brothers. Like, I have seen that so many times. It's an ungodly number of times. Like, it's a great movie, but stop it. Just stop it. That was also a gateway, of course, to SCTV because John Candy's in it, you know. Orange Whip, 3 orange whips. You knew that was coming. I was able to resist quoting Monty Python. Can't resist quoting the Blues Brothers. And yeah, I really never got into blues music. I love the soundtrack. I own the tape, and I listened to the soundtrack, but I just never got into blues music. I like that most of the blues songs in the Blues Brothers are rockin', like they're rock songs. So it's kind of a gateway to rock. Apparently blues music, that's where a lot of rock and roll was inspired. Oh, well, anyway. So here's where things get a little confusing. I remember, but I can't place it. 2 movies that I had on cable, 2 movies that I had on tape that I remember very specifically having the tape of. Now, there's a few films I'm going to throw at you here that I remember so distinctly that I could never sit through them again, no matter how hard I try. And I think it's because we own the tape. Ghostbusters. Now, folks, I've caught so much shit for this over the years. I don't really like Ghostbusters. I don't really like the other one that really got me in trouble was I don't like Back to the Future. And they're not bad, but I watch them too much. And I mean like overexposed my brain to them. Now, I definitely remember we didn't have Back to the Future. We didn't own that, but I just remember seeing it so many times. And, you know, the TV stations would run it when part 2 was coming out, and they'd run part 1 and part 2 when part 3 was coming out. So I am well versed in the Back to the Future world, and I cannot stand Back to the Future. I just get it away from me. And Ghostbusters, it's like one of those things that I wasn't smart enough to get a lot of the humor, but the lead up and the dialogue and all the fun shit that's like perfect, like a perfect screenplay from Ghostbusters, bored me as a kid. And so I started getting angry at the movie as a kid, waiting for the ghosts to show up and stuff. So, and I own the soundtrack. I used to dance in my living room to the Ghostbusters soundtrack, even though it scared me. I once had a vision. I saw frickin' Slimer coming at me down a hallway, but I think I just watched Ghostbusters too often. So getting away from losing you all by slamming Ghostbusters and Back to the Future, my apologies. Here's a movie that I remember so well that when I finally saw the director's cut with restored scenes, my whole world came crumbling down. I'm talking about Aliens, 1986, directed by James Cameron. So I'd seen Alien at a very young age, like weirdly young. I don't even know. It was probably one of those early films on cable. So maybe I was 6 or 7 when I saw Alien. And it was one of those things I had like really a fond memory of, like Alien. I thought it was a neat movie or something. But Aliens came out, and of course it was the biggest thing ever. It was huge because it was badass action, just perfectly merged with body horror and just pure sci-fi terror. So it was great. And somebody gave me that tape for Christmas, and I proceeded to watch Aliens like a lot. Like, that's the whole theme of this whole episode. I watched Aliens a whole bunch, over and over and over again. Like, oh my God. Pardon me, I'm just burping. Oh my Lord. And drinking water. Cool guy. But yeah, I love Aliens to this day. That damn director's cut with the scenes with the colonists, I hate that. When you finally see the colonists before all the crap happened, it's like the prequel you never wanted. It's so lame. I hate that. In the book that I wrote called Cinema Somnambulist, available at Amazon.com, I talk about my story with RoboCop, my history with the RoboCop movies. Still have never seen RoboCop 3. Gotta work on that one of these days. But the summer that RoboCop came out, it was hyping, and people were hyping RoboCop. It was everywhere. And I was so stoked on seeing RoboCop. And my birthday is in August, so it came out in July. I knew I had a limited window to see it. Now, my mom said that she would take me to see RoboCop after I graduated swimming lessons. Now, folks, I was 10 years old. And way too old for swimming lessons. Like, I was 10. I felt like an idiot because I was really immature. Wow, isn't that weird that I was really immature? Can you guys imagine that? And I was bigger than all the other kids who were swimming because they were all 5 and 4 and 3 and whatever. I was this big, moronic, skinny. The last time I was skinny was when I was 10. I was just such oh, God. But the last day of swimming class, the last challenge, jump off the diving board into the deep end. Now, I was terrified of drowning. I don't know where it came from. Maybe from watching Jaws. I thought a shark was going to get me in the pool. But I had a freaking freak out because I didn't want to dive in. I didn't want to jump in the deep end. I was completely terrified to jump in the deep end. And I tried to haggle with my mom, like, okay, so maybe like I can still go see RoboCop, but I don't have to do this, do I? Like, I don't have to actually jump. Like, we can just ask them to say that I passed the class, right? My mom's like, no, just go jump off the diving board. Just go jump off the diving board. And I lost it. I started freaking out. Like, I had to jump into the deep end, into the arms of not one, but 2 lifeguards who were teaching the class. And I'd made such a scene that, like, I mean, crying, like sobbing, such a scene jumping into the deep end that when I got out, I was like, Mom, I did it. My mom's like, you just humiliated me in front of all these people. I'm not taking you to see RoboCop. So I didn't get to see RoboCop in the theaters, which is good because that movie is so freaking insanely violent. My mom would have we would have left the theater before it was even halfway over. So it's a blessing that she didn't take me that day to see it because it would have been over. So eventually I got to watch it on pay-per-view. We were staying at a hotel and I got to watch RoboCop. And what I was doing was, in order to not pay for the movie, I would just watch it in little segments. So I'd watch a minute and then change a channel for 5 minutes, watch another minute, change a channel for 5 minutes. So I ended up watching RoboCop once and then a bunch of times all pieced together. So it was really fun. But then eventually that Christmas, my parents got me RoboCop on VHS. My parents still hadn't seen it. They didn't know how violent and disgusting that movie is. I don't know if they ever saw it, but I proceeded to watch it 30,000 times. I love RoboCop. I'm a big fan of RoboCop 2. And because I found out that RoboCop 3 was PG-13 and didn't star Peter Weller, I never watched it. One day, I promise, I will watch RoboCop 3. Just haven't gotten around to it. So, a film that we owned that was somewhat violent, slightly different tone. You could call it a prequel to RoboCop. In fact, it's got all the same elements. It's called Throw Mama from the Train. 1987, directed by Danny DeVito. Now, I didn't even know it was directed by Danny DeVito until, like, today, which I find that very funny. Throw Mama from the Train, I thought was the funniest film ever made. Period. End of story. And I got it for a birthday or I got it for Christmas, or my parents just bought it for themselves because they liked it too. I'm not sure. But yeah, lots and lots of watching and rewatching that. It's kind of what inspired me to be a writer, I guess, or a wannabe writer, because that movie's all about writing. And it's just something that's just really, really precious to me. I love that movie. I would watch that right now. I would watch that right now. That's, what a film. Okay. Action. We've already proved that I'm an alien psychopath and a RoboCop freakazoid. Of course, good old Blues Brothers has a ton of action in it. But here's where things get really violent. Needlessly violent. Frickin' Die Hard. 1988, directed by good old John McTiernan. I cannot sit through Die Hard now. I have it memorized, and I just don't enjoy it as much as I do as a kid. I did as a kid. I love when frickin' Ben Stiller was doing the parody of it, and he goes, "Yabba dabba dooba dabba deeba dabba dooba." Like, that's, to me, that's better than all of the movie Die Hard. I don't know why I just can't sit through Die Hard. I think it's overexposure, just like the aforementioned Beverly Hills Cop and Ghostbusters. I still like it. I certainly like it more than Ghostbusters, but it's just something. I mean, my parents are just letting me watch this crazy stuff with people's kneecaps being blown off and everything. Yeah. I don't even know what that means to a kid's brain. I was obsessed with guns, which is funny because I do not own a gun now. But I was so obsessed with guns as a kid that I owned all those like gun books you'd find at Kmart or like the $3 book sales that were just huge encyclopedias of every kind of gun. And I would draw guns constantly and draw my own versions of guns. So I would draw guns with guns that were like attached to other guns and a grenade launcher. So it'd be like a grenade launcher and a machine gun and a pistol like glued together. That was my fantasy. Guns are dumb. I hate guns, but I certainly loved them as a kid because I have no penis. So the next movie, also from the 80s. Are you shocked by these 80s movies yet? Oh my God. John Hughes directed something called Uncle Buck in 1989. Wow. Yep. Love John Candy. Love Uncle Buck. Not sure I want to watch it anytime soon. I'm sure one day I'll have a nice revisit with it. I'll probably watch a bunch of John Candy movies in a row sometime. Magical, funny film, and yet another connection to SCTV. I guess all roads just lead back to John Candy, because I want to eat him like candy. Hello? Okay. Also from 1989, a little movie called Batman, 1989. I already said that. Directed by Tim Burton, or as Vanilla Ice would say, hurtin' for certain like Tim Burton. And the funny thing about Batman, it was the biggest movie that year, of course. And I got it for Christmas. I remember being really excited, and I'd already watched it a ton. I don't know if I saw it in the theater. I was really bad about getting to the theater as a kid. I don't have a lot of theater memories from the 80s. I have a few choice ones. Batman. I'm all over that Batman. And then at some point I got sick of it because I watched it too many times. Are you sensing a theme here? So my friends came over and I wanted to show them something funny that you could do. So I took my tape of Batman, which I had not watched for years, and I put tape over the tape. You know, where you can record over a VHS tape by just covering up that little notch in the side there. And I hooked up a microphone to my video camera, and I recorded over just the audio of Batman. When he goes, "I am Batman," I made it say, "I am Batwhack." And my friends and I proceeded to laugh until we almost injured our bodies by laughing so hard. So apparently I was willing to ruin my copy of a film by making one dumb joke, "I am Batwhack." So yeah, I'm a cool kid. Man, no wonder I had so many fun things to do as a child. From 1988, a little comedy directed by Frank Oz, which I had no idea. This is funny. This is fun. I researched this stuff today, and I'm learning so much. Wow. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, 1988. Frank Oz. I had no idea. She being my mother. My mom and I watched Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and we loved it. And that was a movie my mom and I really bonded over. Much like my dad and I bonded over Monty Python and the Holy Grail, my mom and I bonded over Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And again, for the 1,000th time, I watched it too much. I'm sure I'd love it now. I'm a big Steve Martin guy. I think he's very funny. We'll be hearing more from him shortly. Speaking of Steve Martin, Total Recall, 1990, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven directed RoboCop, and I don't think I mentioned that. So in this movie, Steve Martin goes to Mars. No, that's not funny. Total Recall, continuing with the theme of overly violent movies in my household. Good Lord. Just so many bullets, so many dead people, so many arms ripped off. Just... Total Recall, man. It's something special. It just... I should watch it again, but I don't think I need to. I have it memorized. So now, one more Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Actually, let's talk about a couple Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. So The Running Man. I don't remember if we owned The Running Man. I cannot remember it. But boy, howdy, did I watch The Running Man over and over and over again. I loved The Running Man. I don't know how I saw that so many times if we didn't have the tape. And Predator. Predator, I watched Predator so much. I would love to trade some of those viewings of Predator for just a couple of viewings of Predator 2. That'd be fun. I like Predator 2. So, okay, last Arnold Schwarzenegger movie I'm going to talk about, L.A. Story, or La Story. 1991, directed by Mick Jackson, of course, starring Steve Martin, Sarah Jessica Apocalypse, and many other people. I think Richard E. Grant? Richard E. Grant might be in that one. But I loved L.A. Story. I didn't get half the jokes. I mean, I was like 15 or 14 when that came out, so there's a lot of jokes that were way over my head. But that movie is just such a tight frickin' comedy. It's just so... Did you hear me say tight? That movie's tight. Ooh. L.A. Story's brilliant. I am now more of a Roxanne guy. I used to not like Roxanne. I always was like, whenever Roxanne was on, I'd be like, I wish they'd show L.A. Story. But now I'm a huge Roxanne fan, man. That movie's so good, especially that Blu-ray. All right, let's talk about horror. Man, we need some horror in this house. Am I talking too fast? Oh, it's too late. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I'll try to talk slower in the future. Horror. I saw a little show called This Is Horror, or AKA Stephen King's World of Horror, and I saw this on MTV. It aired every Saturday night for a couple weeks, and it was before Headbangers Ball, which I wasn't forbidden. It was never a hard, no, you can't watch this. It was a soft, we don't want you watching this. Excuse me, I'm just burping again. So they would force me to get up in the middle of the night after my dad had gone to sleep, because my dad was like a night owl. And as soon as he was asleep, I'd sneak out and watch Headbangers Ball like 2 a.m. or however long it was on. And my dad would get up and be like, "What are you doing? Go back to bed." And I'd be like, "Whatever, Dad." Before Headbangers Ball, they showed This Is Horror, and it just blew my mind. I've gone through my history of getting into horror movies in piecemeal over the course of this many years of this podcast. But that was the thing that really kicked it off, was that special. I believe you can watch it all on YouTube. You can find the old tapes. They're probably worth a lot of money now, but it is just a great series, a wonderful introduction to so many things. Stuart Gordon, Brian Usna, all the Freddy movies. Dario Argento's covered at length. Clive Barker has a huge thing in that. So yeah, if you can track down This Is Horror, aka Stephen King's World of Horror, go for it. And this was the show that inspired me to want to rent every single horror movie at Blockbuster Video, formerly Video Extron in Jupiter, Florida. And the movie that I rented, never owned this, but would rent repeatedly and then watch as many times as I could fit in to the weekend, was Evil Dead 2, 1987, directed by Sam Raimi. Wow. What the hell? I watched that so often, loved quoting it. I would just think about it all day at school. It's just, oh man, made me cut my hand off. Just fantastic freaking movie. There were a lot of other horror things that just scared the crap out of me as a kid. But of course, Evil Dead made it funny, which should have set me up to love Army of Darkness a lot more. I do like Army of Darkness, but after the initial viewing, I was like, I want to go back and watch Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 again. And then for many years, I only liked Evil Dead. I didn't like Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness, but I've come back around. I love all of them. I'm great. I actually bought every single version of Army of Darkness that Anchor Bay put out. They're in a storage unit. Anchor Bay, what were you guys doing? That was weird. Stop putting out Army of Darkness. All right. I cannot stress enough how frickin' important these two movies were to A, getting me into a certain director, and B, becoming a lifeline through the 90s. Because I was one of those people that I was just grousing for many years after the 90s, how terrible horror was in the 90s, and there's nothing good, and da-da-da-da. It's not true. There's a lot of great horror in the 90s. Duh. Just gotta dig for it. You gotta go foreign films. You gotta bend over backwards to find the good 90s stuff. This Ma and Pa video store that was on Indiantown Road in good old Jupiter, Florida. I had never actually been there. The Blockbuster was way closer to my house, so I'd never been to this place. But as I was driving, I noticed that they had a big sign that said, going out of business, of course, thank you, Blockbuster. And they'd never sold out. They just went out of business. They had a big table full of tapes. And I pulled up in my car, got out, and started rummaging through all these tapes. And of course, these things had been picked clean. I could not find any of those hits that I wanted, whatever it was I was looking for. But I found two films that I bought, sight unseen. Knew nothing about either of these movies. I bought Exorcist III, 1990, directed by William Peter Blatty, and Blue Velvet, 1986, directed by David Lynch. So I would then go home and explode my brain. These two films, back to back, what? Because Exorcist 3 is not your typical horror film. It's a character study, and it's like weird, and it's ponderously paced, which is not a problem for me. That was not a slam. That's just true. Very long movie. And then you got Blue Velvet, which is unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I didn't know who David Lynch was when I bought this tape. I just thought it looked cool. And so I would obsessively watch this. My mom even remembers me watching Blue Velvet over and over again. Like, I don't even want to imagine my mom in the same house with me while I'm watching Blue Velvet. That's a complicated experience. But yeah, I love those movies. I'm still a big David Lynch fan. I still love Exorcist 3 very much. Those are great things. Oh, man. Before I forget, a movie I ruined for myself, Pulp Fiction. Saw Pulp Fiction in the theaters with my buddy, and we loved it. So much so that I taped it off of cable as soon as it came on cable. And then I watched Pulp Fiction so many times, I cannot sit through it now. Like, I know there's people who love Quentin Tarantino. Yes, I know your favorite is frickin' Jackie Brown. I don't want to talk about it. That's good for you. And there's a lot of people who hate Quentin Tarantino so much with a burning, fiery passion. And yeah, I don't want to talk to you guys either. But that movie, Pulp Fiction, was the soundtrack opened my mind up to all these different types of music I didn't listen to. And the movie opened my brain up to all these kinds of movies I'd never thought I'd like and whatever. It's just so wonderful. Now I can't sit through it. Just like Reservoir Dogs. Get that out of here. I actually own Reservoir Dogs, and I cannot sit through that ever again. But I still like Tarantino. Whatever he's doing is fine. And a big glaring omission to this was a Repo Man. Repo Man, directed by, what's his face? 1980, what? Was that 84? 84, directed by Alex Cox. Dude, this movie came on TV the first day I had heartburn, which you can read about in Cinema Somnambulist, a book. The first time I ever had heartburn was when I watched Repo Man. Those two memories are forever connected. But Repo Man, I can still telegraph every line. It's embarrassing. The soundtrack was incredible. I still listen to the soundtrack off and on. It's just such a great film. Every single joke pays off later. Every dumb little thing you didn't think was important pays off later. Alex Cox is a brilliant writer. I've never checked out the sequel. I know there's some kind of a sequel. Didn't look too hot. Haven't seen it. I'm scared. Folks, I am done. I'm done talking. Thank you for sitting through this nightmare. So yeah, like I said, doomedmoviethon@gmail.com. I'm doing a big episode on the year 1976, but I want to hear your top 3 favorite films from your birth year, because that's going to be fun. And I don't want to put a lot of work into an episode, so you guys do it for me. Hey! I hope you're doing well. Thank you for indulging me on this little break from a proper episode. I assure you, January 2021, we got lots of cool stuff planned. Simon, Jeffrey, Brad, and I, we have all kinds of cool stuff. Getting back to those listener requests, getting back to the usual stuff. Lietta will be on board. Absolutely going to have Lietta back on the show, talking about movies. Apparently this is a movie podcast. And yeah, I'm out of here. Bye.
Hello, This is the Doom Show is a proud member of the Legion Podcast Network. Please check out the other podcasts on legionpodcasts.com. If you'd like more
Hello, this is the Doom Show.
go to hellodoomshow.podomatic.com or go to doomedmoviethon.com for the archives. If that's still not enough, go to @doomedmoviethon on Twitter. You can write in to Hello, This is the Doom Show. Use the email doomedmoviethon@gmail.com. Doom Show episodes are available on record and 8-track cassette.
If you enjoyed this show, then make sure you check out the other great shows on the Legion Podcast Network, like Cinema Psyops, Cinema Beef, Devour the Podcast, Duncan and Bo Come Correct, Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, Friday the 13th, Get Slayed, The Hellming Power Hour, Hello, This is the Doom Show, Hero Hero Ghost Show, Kill the Cast, Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, Jerry Hates Action, Legion After Dark, Mental Health, Obsessive Cinema, Discourse, Pick 6 Movies, the podcast by The Cemetery, the podcast on Haunted Hill, the Psychosemantic Podcast, Rick Radio, House of Wax, Dude Looks Like the 80s, Rabbit and Red Radio, the Shadecast, Short Bus Cinema, 2 Drink Minimum Commentaries, the VD Clinic, Who Will Survive Horror Podcast, and Witch vs. the Doomsday Clock. With such a wide spread of shows, there is guaranteed to be a niche for you to fall in love with. Horror, politics, movies, books, sex, music, commentaries, health, video games, kaiju, action, news, comedy, and opinions that would most likely get you killed in some parts of the world. We are proud to bring you some of the best podcasting in the world. Check us out at www.legionpodcast.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other dark corner of the internet where podcasts can be found.